Hello, and welcome to the Hamumu Halloween Home Horror Hoedown. I am your host, Mike Hommel.
And I'm your other host, Solely Hommel.
And we're going to take you through 31 scary movies through the month of October, like we do every year. But for the first time this year, we're going to do it entirely in audio format. We like to mix it up every year. One thing you need to be aware of is that we will be employing a truly ghoulish number of spoilers throughout all of these reviews. So if you haven't seen the movie we're reviewing, maybe don't listen to our podcast until you do. We highly recommend you check them out and watch along with us. It's going to be fun for everybody. I mean, how could it not be? So if you're ready and you've watched the movie, please step inside our lair and let's begin. Bad Ben is a 2016 film, not rated, that we watched on Amazon Prime. It is 86 minutes long, rated 5.3 on IMDb, and has no ratings on any other service, which tells you something about the movie. It is the story of a single person, Tom Riley, who buys a house and moves in. He plans to flip it, and of course he discovers that it is haunted. But luckily, he has decided that he's going to film every waking moment of his life for some reason, and so we get to see it all when they find the footage later after, what could possibly have happened?
Not only does he film every waking moment of his life on his iPhone or smartphone, but he also activates the cameras that the previous owners had installed in every room of the house.
Yes, it's quite an elaborate system.
Including the attic.
Yeah, and the basement.
Wait, was it just the phone footage in the attic?
Oh, maybe it was.
Maybe.
But they did have one in the basement.
For obvious reasons.
Right. We'll get into that, I suppose. But first, we need to know one very important question. Why'd you pick it, Solly?
I have been seeing this movie show up every time we've looked for movies, and I've been intrigued by it every time. It looked like it was going to be a Paranormal Activity type movie, and that is one of my favorites. I
hear that a lot.
Love when there's stuff that we're supposed to be looking at to distract us from the stuff that we should be looking at.
It's a game.
It is. And this did not disappoint in that regard.
True. And if I may just throw in my own personal interaction with this film.
Yes.
Seeing that it was called Bad Ben, all this time, we have been seeing it for a couple of years now on the listings. Yeah, it's a 2016 movie. I think we've been seeing it for 2 years on our Amazon Prime listing and constantly going, maybe. But I always thought it was about an obnoxious little kid named Ben, like the Problem Child movies, or possibly like a demon possession, The Omen kind of movie.
Wait, so did you think it was like a June sort of thing where there was a haunted girl
either
or a
that,
haunted boy?
Well, probably a boy since his name's Ben.
Well, right, sure.
But either
or
that...
like Little Evil?
Yes.
Okay.
Or not paranormal at all, just a bad kid, like those horrible Problem Child movies, which I never saw and never will. They're the human centipede of movies, like Human Centipede is. And...
I'm afraid to delve into that statement, so let's just keep moving.
I won't watch it, is all I'm saying.
Okay, full disclosure, I also had some mental assumptions about what this movie was that don't make any sense, but every time I saw the title, my brain immediately jumped to Big Ben.
Yeah, me too.
And for some reason, I thought there was going to be a clock in this movie.
I didn't think that, but it did come up.
And it doesn't make any sense. Like, there's no reason for that. It's just what my brain did every time I saw the name.
Well, for me, it was that kid movie, but also, I never gave it any thought, but I never thought of Paranormal Activity type stuff, even though the cover of it looks like it and it talks about it in the description. I was put off right away by the evil kid plan, and I was not checking it out. So yeah. I'm glad you put us there.
I was also intrigued by the fact that there's a prequel.
There is.
And there are a couple of sequels, including one called Mandela Effect, which is that whole thing where there are pieces of information that people disagree on, and it's supposed to be proof of like alternate universes and stuff, like Berenstein or Berenstein, right?
Yeah.
And that's a thing that keeps coming up in my life over the last couple of years, like
at least in this universe.
At least in this universe. So that kind of intrigued me, but I felt like we had to watch the first one first. Like I felt like we needed to watch it in order.
Yeah, when I saw there was the Mandela Effect one, and from the description, it appears to be something like this movie repeated over and over in different variations, which
is
sounds
amazing.
Very intriguing. Where that might have to happen this month. I see very much excitement.
Okay, so let's talk first and first.
First and first.
For once in our lifetime, the first shot and the first line happen simultaneously.
Hooray!
That is a very rare thing. The first shot is a selfie video that the main character, Tom Riley, is making as he drives to this house that he just bought on a police auction. And he says,
I'm on my way from settlement on the house on Steelmanville Road.
And can I just say, Steelmanville just seems like a name that some writer put in as a placeholder. They couldn't come up with a name and they just like put 3 words together.
That's a lot. That's too many words.
It is too many words. Steelville, Steelman.
Yeah.
Either one of those would have worked.
Manville would be a little weird.
Yeah, but even that would... Steelmanville is just a lot. And then you add the word road after it.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
So anyway, that's our first and first. That it was pretty simple. I did take umbrage to the fact that he was making this video as he was driving.
Right.
It doesn't seem like a safe thing to be doing.
No, and he did it again later too. So
yeah.
Well, and that gets into his big thing is he spends the whole movie filming himself and talking to the camera, and it's of every found footage I've seen, this is the one with the least explanation of it. He acts like he's filming YouTube videos or he's live streaming. He's sitting there talking to the audience going, so now, it's kind of like this and I'm really concerned about that.
Right, he even says at one point, like, so I'll get back to you on that or something like that.
And so it's like it's clearly made for someone, but he never talks about, I'm filming this for my brother or whatever.
No.
It's weird.
My theory is that he is filming an audition video for an episode of Flip My Haunted House.
Yeah, which doesn't exist yet.
But it totally should.
Maybe he's actually sending it to like HGTV to be like, you should make this show.
Yes.
Yeah.
That could be it.
Of course, he didn't know it was haunted at first. Well, he was just hoping.
Yeah. The other theory that I have is that he is a very, very lonely person. Because the only humans he talks to throughout the whole movie, he talks to the electric company, off camera, I believe. Then he talks to the security guy.
A couple times.
Involving, with the cameras several times. And actually starts to get kind of buddy-buddy with him.
Yeah.
Like this is the closest friendship that he has in his life. And at one point he talks to whoever he bought the house from at this sheriff's sale. And he's not nice to them.
Yeah, he's not nice at all.
Given the choice of profanity he was using.
Yeah, I think so. And that carries over into, might be too early to discuss, but the making of this movie.
I think we should discuss that. Go, tell us about that.
Well, I don't know anything about the making of this movie other than what I've, kind of guessed at from what I'm seeing, which is Nigel Bach was the star of this movie. And also literally the only person in this movie, except sometimes you see like a shadow that's supposed to be a ghost, but is obviously had to be a person. So he does have a friend.
And that person, that shadow, is on screen at the same time that Tom is on screen. So
we discussed that just because I wasn't totally sure.
Yeah.
So he had someone help him, plus there had to be someone to pull the ropes when chairs moved magically in front of him.
Yep.
So there's somebody else there, maybe someone he paid. I don't know, he might not have friends. But for the entire movie, it's just him on screen, except a little bit of ghost. And he's the director, he's probably the writer, there is no writer credit. He's the editor, he most likely did everything.
I strongly suspect he did the CGI himself.
Yes.
Just given the quality of the CGI.
Very much looks like he did that himself.
Which I was bagging on during the movie, but if he was the only person making this movie, I gotta say I'm kind of impressed.
Well, yeah, because that's the thing, is this, are we watching a Hollywood movie that we're judging as, is this a good movie, or are we watching a project that this guy made and saying, did he do a good job? Because it's amazing for Nigel Bach to have created this himself.
Single-handedly. Almost.
I mean, assuming he's not like a professional filmmaker, and I'm guessing he's not a professional filmmaker.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I already liked the movie, but then to find out that, I was like, this guy's amazing.
It's very interesting.
What a fun project to do. To just be like, I'm going to make a movie by myself.
Yeah, and that's what I saw. Like, when I realized that, I was like, that could totally be me. Back when we lived in the high desert in California, we were out there in the middle of nowhere, and I imagined doing things like this. Like, I did film stuff, like my Halloween horror reviews and whatnot. But I occasionally thought about maybe filming, like, a little horror movie, like popping out around the corner and stuff.
At one point, you made a game where you did go around and take pictures of various places.
Yeah.
And, like, the game was, like, you had to click on, you had to click on, like, parts of the picture to
so it was like
a
point-and-click adventure that was a poem made out of pictures of our yard.
It was awesome.
And it's called Two Roads, and it's available on Itch.io if you want to check it out.
You should definitely check
free.
it out. It's very cool. And it features our dogs.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, so simply in the making of the movie, this is an impressive movie.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the movie itself, like the story and etc., etc.
I have more notes for this movie than for any of the ones we've seen so far.
That's impressive. I don't know that I can say the same, but I always take excessive notes.
Yeah, I don't.
So, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie.
I don't know if I'm on the same level you are here, but I liked it.
I felt like a sense of giddiness, of joy watching this movie. I don't quite know how to explain it, but it was everything I wanted it to be. Like, all the exact right moments. I'd be watching something and I'm like, oh, there's going to be something in the background, and I'm like looking and oh, there it is. Some flicker in the corner. Or, a shadow goes across the doorway over in the back. It was so cool.
Yeah, that's fun stuff. I think it was not on the level of a Paranormal Activity movie for that kind of thing. Like, on the one hand, a lot more ghostly stuff happened. It was happening all the time throughout the movie. But it was also not real scary stuff. Like, the biggest thing for me was that this ghost's main move was to go around the house turning on lights and then turning them off when it left the room, because it was very energy conscious.
It was very
It would flip on the light that it went into the room, and then it would leave the room and turn it off. And the thing is, the whole point of the scary ghost is that it's in the dark, and this ghost would literally only be in the light because it would turn on the light every time it went in a room.
Yeah, I didn't understand that, but it was endearing? I don't know. Like, it was interesting. And, it did one of my favorite things, which is moving the furniture around.
That's fun.
I always liked that.
I had something about that.
Didn't put the furniture on the ceiling, but it did move the furniture around. It was amusing to me that it moved the furniture around while he was standing next to it. And he had, like, this tug of war with the ghost.
Well, and that's another example of it not being scary. Like, at that point, he's just going, come back here.
Right.
And that's not a scary scene. That's just kind of silly.
Yeah. And that is one of the other things I liked about this movie. He wasn't afraid.
He was
at
really
any
not
point
afraid
in the whole movie until, like, the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, he was super rational about it at first. Like, he had all kinds of reasons why these things could be happening. Somebody was breaking in, the camera was defective, like, he used his brain like a normal human being to try to explain the situation, which I fully appreciated, because too many horror movies have people who immediately are like, well, obviously it's the paranormal.
Yeah, he had to have that tug of war with the chair before he was like, okay, this is a ghost.
Yes. And the whole music box thing. Like, eventually,
yeah, that's right.
Let's see, I made a point of where he thought, oh, it's after he talked to the camera guy, or the security guy, and the security guy was like, no, the cameras are working fine. There's just there's nothing there when these things are happening.
Yeah, and he sent in the video so he could see the chairs were just moving around.
Oh, right. And he saw, like, in real time, he saw that there was something at the front door.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And that was the point where he's like, whoa, okay. And then he stomped around the house yelling, "You can't hurt me, I'm a Christian."
Which is interesting because he spent the first half of the movie tearing anything remotely Christian out of the house and throwing away this really nice, super old fancy Bible that nobody would throw away.
I mean, it was pretty busted up, but it was very old.
It's an antique.
It was definitely an antique. And he just took it and, like, unceremoniously dumped it in the trash. I'm like, ooh, that's that's gonna upset somebody.
Yeah.
So he was never afraid. He was super rational. So when he did realize there were ghosts, he got curious.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he, tried to communicate with them using, like, the radio toy that he had found, and, like, was looking around and not afraid, just curious. And then he started to get mad. Like, this is where I've put all of my money into this house. Like, you guys need to get out. And I thought that was very refreshing. That's never what happens.
I had a different take in that it was not good for me. Like, definitely to a certain extent that's good, but after the ghost starts wailing on him and punches him in the face 20 times, which was a fun scene, and then he carefully sets his camera on a tripod before he starts washing the blood off his face.
Well,
He then goes around still being like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm not afraid of you." I noticed he stopped saying "you can't hurt me." But,
yeah.
But he goes around, trying to get rid of these ghosts. No, you're done. You've lost your investment. Get out of the house. Because it's punching you.
Well, but he came up with that way to evict the ghosts.
Yes, he invented a ritual, apparently.
Right. He, like, marched in circles around the house saying,
"This is no longer your home. It's time for you to cross over. Peace awaits you there."
Over and over again. Now, my question that I wrote down at that time was, is this something that is an established way? Like, did he Google this? Is this a ritual for evicting ghosts that he found somewhere? Or does he truly think that he can just make this stuff up and it'll work?
I mean, I feel like you could. It's about the same. But, yeah, it felt made up. But I don't know.
It did feel made up. Wait, so you think that it's possible to just make something up and it might work?
I don't think there's any remote chance that anything like ghosts is slightly real in the slightest sense whatsoever. But if they were, I mean, I don't know, you're communicating with them, right? You're saying something to them. They're saying, "Oh, really? There's peace on the other side? All right."
So it's about the intent and the communication. It's not about the ritualistic series of words.
Because otherwise, I mean, why would it be specific words? That's weird. That's really weird. But I did love at the end of that when he finishes his ritual and then he's arrived at the back door of the house and he opens it up and points outside. He's like, "Now get!"
and then the door swings closed.
Yeah, the ghost
like they had just
the
left. That was funny.
And he thought it was all cool before we follow with the infamous yard work scene in which he does yard work for 10 minutes.
It wasn't 10 minutes, but it was an extensive showing of yard work from a distance.
So this movie is full of profanity because his response to everything the ghost does is the F word. And one of my favorite lines is this one, heavily bleeped.
"Some satanic bullshit. The last people that lived here and got their asses handed to them."
And I think that's a great example of his response to the ghosts in this movie.
That is Tom to a T.
Yeah, which is funny because that's realistic.
Yeah, I feel like I would also employ liberal use of the F word should my house be haunted. So I had a lot of lines I enjoyed that made me laugh. I feel like we've talked about the two that I really wrote down. "You can't hurt me, I'm a Christian." Mm-hmm. And when he decided that there were ghosts there and he had originally demanded that they get out, he said, "You want me out of here?" Oh no, they were trying to make him leave. And he said, "You want me out of here, you'll have to do more."
Yeah, smooth move.
I mean, that sort of like throwing away the Bible. Like, that's just asking for trouble.
Oh, that was when he did that. Yeah, he said that and then like the box flipped up in the air. And then it
Oh, yeah, he's in the
slammed
attic.
him into the attic and shut the door. He's like, oh, yeah, I guess you did more.
Yeah, but even he wasn't that afraid at that
No,
point.
he
It
really
wasn't
wasn't.
until that night. Oh, I remember what happened. The ghost actually, like, leaves. Like, you see it, like,
Yeah.
travel through the house and go out the front door
Yeah,
and across the
he
lawn.
tells it to get out of there, and it's like, okay, geez, and it ran.
But then the bigger, badder ghost shows up and
Yeah.
beats him up in his sleep. So,
Yeah, it was not a successful run.
yeah. So there was one other line that I wrote down at the beginning when he dumped all this religious stuff into the trash, and he had removed it because he wanted the showing of the house to be like, he wanted the house to be
Non-religious.
PC,
Yeah,
as he put it.
which I think is weird, but okay.
Yeah, it's super weird. I mean, every house we looked at when we were buying had a cross in it somewhere.
Yeah, it's not anything you'd be shocked by.
Which is why I wrote this line down, because he dumps it and then he goes,
That's the day and age we live in.
and I'm like, well, no, it's not. Like, I feel like there's evidence daily that we do not live in a day and age in which religious icons are not appreciated by the majority.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
So one thing he did is he had, his phone conversations with various people.
Mm-hmm.
His phone conversations were 10 times more realistic than the ones in Ride. He'd ask a question and he'd be waiting, and you could totally tell there was a whole process there where the other person was saying something and he didn't just magically repeat the key part of what he heard. You just inferred what was going on. It was like a real phone conversation.
It was.
Very impressive work, Nigel Bach.
I mean, given that the dialogue entirely consisted of him talking on the phone or talking to himself,
Yeah.
it was impressive, actually, from a writing perspective. Because dialogue and talking to yourself are two things that people tend to write very poorly. So, story-wise, I don't know what the story is. It's sort of like with the phone calls. Like,
Yeah.
we never are really told what happened. Like, we learned that this couple were murdered in the house.
And their kid.
It becomes, it becomes
actually,
obvious that there was a kid there,
who
but
died before the parents because they buried him.
maybe, I don't know, because he never really gets curious about that. Like,
No, he's really not.
he didn't care at all. In fact, he finds what is obviously the backyard grave site of a small child, like an infant-sized child, with a cross, like a little wooden cross and a little toy that the kid used to use, sitting there, and his reaction is to, like, take the toy, throw the cross into the woods,
Yeah,
and, like,
can't have
kick
people
the rocks
seeing that
around.
There's a cross in the yard.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I don't want anyone to see that there's a grave here. Like, oh, if there weren't ghosts, if you weren't haunted before, you are now. So anyway, there was probably a kid. There's a picture that we see that has good Ben and bad Ben, and I don't understand what's going on there exactly.
I mean, I think because they're both Ben. No, I don't know what's going on. But I got good news for you, Soli. The next movie is the prequel about this family.
That's so exciting.
So we get to learn all that we need to know.
That makes me actually very happy.
Do we have to watch all 4 movies this month?
Well, yes, but I don't know that we're going to review all 4 of them. That seems excessive.
Okay.
So, anyway, all of that backstory, for me to get to the comment that I wrote down,
Okay.
is that this guy is no Amanda.
Oh, he's no Amanda.
No Amanda.
Are you going to explain who Amanda is?
So, for those who have not listened to previous podcasts, which you absolutely should because we're highly entertaining,
Super duper.
one might even say,
We're fun!
We did a podcast for the Levenger tapes in which Amanda found the bloody dress of a girl she thought had been murdered and then focused all of her energy on making sure that that dress was saved,
Yes.
to the detriment of her friends. So this guy, no Amanda. Like, he was like, he even found a bloody onesie in the shed, and he's like, this is probably evidence. And then he just left it in the shed.
And then later he threw it away.
And then later threw it away. Speaking of the fact that there was a double murder in this house,
Mm-hmm.
we are watching from the moment that he shows up at this house. Like, the very first time he's walked into this house, he walks in That night, he chooses to sleep in the house.
Oh, yes.
And we see him sleeping for several different nights, and we never see him change the sheets. He doesn't bring his own bedding. This man is sleeping in the sheets that he found on the bed that he found in the murder house that he just bought.
Murder house. Murder house. Murder house. He sure was. That happened. He does not have, I don't know, good judgment?
I feel like he doesn't have an imagination. He's like, these sheets are clean enough.
He's a very practical kind of guy.
Yeah, very pragmatic.
Mm-hmm. But not so much that he's going to deny the ghost. Like, once he sees the evidence, he's like, okay, now I'm pragmatically going to handle this ghost.
So, you know what they say, once you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's very Sherlock Holmes in his approach to life. What can you say?
I don't know about that, but okay. What he is he's very Brian Posehn in his approach to life, I have to say. This guy looked and sounded just like Brian Posehn, and I feel like Brian Posehn would have loved this role. He wishes he had done this movie all by himself.
I think so.
I feel bad that he didn't get to.
I think he would have enjoyed that. Yeah.
We briefly mentioned that there was some bad digital effects. Mm-hmm. There are some bad digital effects. There's a candle that magically lights itself, only it doesn't light itself. It's a picture of a candle flame pasted over the screen.
And kind of in the wrong spot at first.
Well, and then the camera jiggles a little as he's coming back to it, and the flame doesn't. So it's like the flame's not moving with the screen. It's bad. But not nearly as bad as when there's writing getting drawn into some ashes. And it's like, what I think, you said there was a green screened out hand that actually wrote in the ashes. That could be, but what it looked like to me... Hey folks, I'm gonna interject here, cut off my own review to say, I went back and watched this scene again, and now I see how it's done. It was 2 scenes, one with the ashes with no writing, one with writing, and he's just fading parts of the shot from one to the other. Oh, it's really funny. I highly recommend it. It was not a good effect, is the main point.
Gotta give him credit.
Hey.
If he did it alone, I wouldn't have been able to do even that, so...
Yeah, I mean, it kind of looked like the kind of movie I would make by myself. If you want to check out my Behind the Dumb videos, you'll see very similar effects. Like when I get attacked by ninjas.
So, we haven't really talked about the actual bad Ben who lived in the basement.
Yeah, well, the movie barely talks about it because he's only in there for 15 seconds.
Well, because he's trapped in the basement.
Yeah, I guess.
And I think... So my theory is that there's the demon trapped in the basement, Bad Ben, and that the family had trapped him there. Like, there's a camera on him, the room is all set up, like, with a mattress and a chair and chains and whatever.
Yeah.
There's a camera that's been unplugged.
Mm-hmm.
Bad Ben did not like being recorded. But that door is locked. And then there's the ghosts of the family that locked him in there. And they keep, like, piling the living room furniture in front of the basement stair.
They don't want him to go down there.
Yeah. So they, like... He's even aware of it. At one point, he's like, you keep trying to stop me from going down here. I'm going to go find out why.
Yeah. Good move.
Right? Like, I think there are 2 things going on. And the ghosts... were the ones that when he started communicating with them, they were communicating back. I made a note of how these ghosts just sort of seemed to be glad that he was trying to communicate with them. And, you know, frankly, if more people in ghost movies just talked to their ghosts and had open dialogue, maybe they wouldn't all be murdered every time.
Maybe.
The demon, on the other hand, was not interested in communication.
No. But it's a strange thing, because, like, if this demon is just, you know, a monster trapped in the basement, then it wasn't doing any of the ghostly stuff. So was that just the ghostly family? No, because he got punched in the face 20 times. So the demon must be able to do magic stuff around the house. I don't know. It seems sketchy and weird.
Maybe it was Good Ben, the child ghost, who was trying to protect him and communicate with him and whatever. But then when he got yelled at He went and got his dad.
That's what it looked like, because that was the point where he was like, get out, leave me alone, get out of this house. And the ghost ran downstairs and left the house. And then a minute later, his dad came in and beat up, well, it was hours later, came in and beat up the guy, because that is totally what it looked like.
Yeah. Ratings.
So, Lee, how do you rate Bad Ben, your favorite new movie series?
I feel like I'm going to get some crap for my rating.
I bet you are.
Because this movie was literally everything I like in a horror movie. Like, it was scary, but not too scary. It was funny in places. Mm-hmm. There was originality to it. There was a story that sort of made sense. And the parts that didn't make sense weren't really a big deal to me. Like, it wasn't that the whole thing was confusing. It was just, they didn't go into a lot of backstory. Fine. I'm going to catch that on the next movie. There were just everything. I just liked so many things about it. The acting was not terrible, but not the best I've come across.
Yeah.
Oh, the CGI was shockingly bad.
Yeah.
But I would have rated this movie highly anyway because of how much joy it brought me. But then to find out that it was done essentially by a single person with a little bit of assistance, I'm sure, I have to give this movie a 5.
Wow.
I have to give this movie a 5. There's nothing I don't like about this movie.
This is a 5.
It is. It's not a 5 because it's a great movie. I mean, it's not a 5 because it's like Train to Busan, right?
Uh-huh.
But it's a 5 because there's just so much to like about it.
Wow.
And so little to dislike.
That's interesting. Now, on our patented out of 5 rating system,
right.
What were you rating it?
So I'm rating this a 5 spooky haunted baby toys out of 5.
That's okay. That is an amazing score that you've given it. I can't meet your score.
I didn't think you would.
It's not possible. Where this, for me, does not meet what I'm looking for in a horror movie is it didn't have enough scares. It wasn't scary enough. It was the Paranormal Activity thrill ride game of, looking in the background to see what's going on, which is cool.
Sure.
But then I'm not willing to let the lack of story go, because that's what I watch ghost movies for, is the story of what does this ghost want and how can we appease it and make it go away. That's the game of the ghost movie. That's the game for the characters. The game for me is to spot things in the background. So everybody gets to play a game. So it was missing those things. And yeah, it's got some low budget, low quality issues going on for sure. But the fact that it's a one-man job, like something I would have made back in the desert, that's super fun. And I did have fun the whole time, and I really enjoyed it because this is the kind of thing I enjoy. And I'm looking forward to finishing the series, of course.
Oh, me too.
So I'm going to give it, I think I have to go all the way down to giving it a 3 spooky haunted baby toys out of 5.
A 3?
Not that I enjoyed it so much less than a movie I'd give a 4 to, but that I need to tell our audience that this is not a quality, great movie. I think I'm putting it in the middle with the 3. That's the high middle for me. 2.5 is my middle.
Sure.
So, it's a lot of fun, but I mean, Charlie was more fun for me, definitely. Charlie was awesome. But this was also a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the rest. So, hooray for Nigel Bach and his amazing individual homemade handcrafted creations.
I am super tempted to see if I can find him like on social media and like tag him in this podcast so he can know how much I love this movie.
You should track him down and then sneak into his house and start moving stuff around.
I'm sure he'll be very pragmatic about that.
Actually, I would like to point out that we're all, and by we, I mean me and the people who reviewed this thing on IMDb, pretty sure that this movie was shot in his own personal house, which explains the plot point of how, the owners left all their junk here. It's his junk. I've had a tiny brush with fame from Growtopia, and it's awful. People wanting your time and attention is awful. It's not good. No one should ever go through it. And I always used to think, celebrities talked about that, and it's like, oh, come on, you get to be rich and famous. so what if few people are going to bother you? No, it's awful. You don't want to be famous.
And the saddest / scariest part is that it's always the ones who are too intense or too angry or too whatever who reach out and communicate with you. Like, it's never the normal fans who talk to you.
Yeah, it's you reaching out to Nigel Bach, for example.
Exactly.
But it's very much like people who like what I do are friendly and say nice things to me on social media. People who hate what I do hunt me down and try to get all my personal information and come after me and hurt me. That's a big gap between those two kinds of people. So people who hate you are the ones who are coming after you, and it's not fun.
And it's sad for the normal fans.
Yeah.
Who then I hesitate to communicate with.
Right.
Because it's really hard to tell who's going to just be a normal person and who's going to tell you that they know where you live and that they're probably going to come kill you at some point, which, true story, has happened to us.
Oh, lots of times. I mean, not tons, but more than once.
Often enough. I have social media messages that I have been sent over the years that I have kept just in case I need to show them to the police at some point.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a great thing.
And that's a level of fame that is like nothing. I guarantee you Nigel Bach is more well known than we are. And he's probably faced worse. So
probably.
We won't go harass him at his home.
Don't worry, Nigel. We're not coming for you. All right, well, I guess that does it for Bad Ben.
The first one, anyway.
The first one. I guess we'll catch everybody on the
Flippity flop!
floppity.
Pity. I forgot it. It had a pity on the end. The following is the sound our cat makes all the time when we're trying to record. No. Kitty.